That means the wedding's on again, and doesn't the bride look beautiful?
The bride looks beautiful? Her?
All brides are beautiful.
You mean she'll look worse after we're married?
Back then, a 3-hour tour turned into 3 seasons, 3 reunion movies, 2 animated spin-offs, and enough behind-the-scenes trouble to sink the SS Minnow twice. Welcome to Gilligan's Island, where 7 castaways survived on palm fronds, fish, and Gilligan's well-meaning mistakes, but they never managed to fix a 3-foot hole in a boat. The show started in 1964, right when the Beatles were showing America what a mop top was, and families crowded around one TV to watch one of 3 channels. Across 98 episodes, we met Gilligan, played by Bob Denver, his little buddy, the skipper, played by Alan Hale Jr., the glamorous Ginger, played by Tina Louise, the wholesome Mary Ann, played by Don Wells, the smart Professor, played by Russell Johnson, and the super rich Howells, played by Jim Backus and Natalie Schaefer. A perfect mix of misfits stuck in paradise. This small sitcom became one of the most rerun, parodied, and strangely loved shows in TV history. So grab your sailor hat, practice your best little buddy voice, and hit like and subscribe so you never miss our retro TV deep dives.
Now let's start the countdown with number 1, the Calypso from Gilligan's Island, the one you were never meant to hear.
In tropical sea is a tropic port. Vacation fun is the favorite.
You know the theme song to Gilligan's Island, right? I mean, you can probably sing it from memory right now. Just sit right back and you'll hear it tell. But what if I told you that before that folksy sea song became a TV classic, there was a completely different version? A cool calypso tune made by a young composer who would later write music for some of the biggest movies ever.
This is the place where the tourists flock, renting the boats at the busy.
The original Gilligan's Island pilot, which stayed hidden for 30 years, had the same basic story and a few familiar characters, but everything, even the theme song, felt a little different.
2 secretaries from USA sail on the Minnow this lovely day.
Instead of the usual folk ballad, viewers heard a fun calypso song that sounded like it belonged at a Caribbean beach, not on a 3-hour boat trip.
A high school teacher is next aboard, all taking trips that they cannot afford.
And the composer was Johnny Williams, the name that the future Star Wars maestro John Williams used early in his career, back when he was still deciding if he wanted to write music for sitcoms or space adventures.
2 people are millionaires. They got no worries, they got no cares.
But here's where it gets really crazy. The singing wasn't done by a professional singer. Show creator Sherwood Schwartz himself did a perfect impression of the famous Calypso singer Sir Lancelot. Imagine that! The guy who made the show basically doing a karaoke version of his own theme song.
I'm aboard and they step inside with just enough bags for a 6-hour ride.
Did you catch that? The tour was originally 6 hours long. Still not enough time for all those bags, though.
Tourists come, tourists go, tourists tossing to and fro.
The pilot's theme had no movie star, no professor, and no Mary Ann. But it did have 2 secretaries with no names and a high school teacher. So yay!
The captain is brave, he's a fearless man, and Gilligan helps him all that he can.
The pilot was filmed at Alawai Yacht Harbor in Honolulu on November 26, 1963, just 4 days after President Kennedy was killed. The whole country was still mourning. If you look closely at the opening credits, you can see an American flag flying at half-mast in the background as the SS Minnow sails out, making an accidental but moving piece of TV history.
The sea is now calm and the weather grand. Where is the Minnow upon?
When CBS said no to the pilot, Schwartz and composer George Weil went back to the drawing board and made that story song we all know by heart. So the next time John Williams' amazing music gives you chills in Indiana Jones or Star Wars, just remember, even future Oscar winners had to start somewhere.
And the millionaire, and Mrs. Millionaire, and the other tourists on Gilligan's Island.
Number 2. The Coast Guard's Coconut Crisis. For 3 years, America watched 7 stranded castaways fail again and again to get rescued from their tropical prison.
We laughed at Gilligan's mistakes, admired the professor's genius for making radios out of coconuts, and rolled our eyes at Mr. Howell's stubborn refusal to rough it. It was silly, harmless comedy, but for some viewers, it wasn't funny at all. During the show's original run, the U.S. Coast Guard had the strange job of answering calls and letters from worried people who really thought that Gilligan's Island was real, and that 7 Americans were stuck somewhere in the Pacific, slowly starving while the government did nothing.
Now just stop talking and please go to sleep.
Okay, Skipper. A new skateboard, a new beanie, 5 pounds of licorice.
5 pounds of licorice. With all that money, why don't you start thinking big?
You're right. 10 pounds of licorice.
Creator Sherwood Schwartz remembered that just 10 weeks after the show started, a Coast Guard commander came to the CBS studios with a stack of telegrams from angry viewers. They wanted to know why the military wasn't sending a rescue for these good Americans. The messages were full of patriotic anger. One said, "We spend millions in foreign aid. Why not send one U.S. destroyer to rescue those poor people before they starve to death?" What surprised Schwartz the most wasn't just that people thought the show was real, it was that they thought it was real even with the laugh track playing after every joke. He wondered, who did they think was laughing at what was happening to these people? Some viewers really believed there was an audience of sociopaths somewhere, laughing at human suffering. The whole thing shows how early television blurred the line between reality and entertainment for some people. This was decades before reality TV taught us to question everything on screen. Back then, if it was on TV, maybe it was real, and if people were in trouble, someone should do something. Ironically, the Castaways were finally rescued in the 1978 TV movie Rescue from Gilligan's Island.
15 years, we're finally rescued.
Rescued. Rescued. Rescued.
Rescued.
Rescued.
But for a short, special moment in TV history, the biggest rescue wasn't happening on screen. It was happening in the hearts and minds of viewers who couldn't tell the difference between actors and real castaways. Number 3. The theme song Snub heard around the island. Remember that old party debate, Mary Ann or Ginger? Well, in Season 1, CBS basically said neither. One was just filler. The second version of the theme song, written by Sherwood Schwartz and George Weil, introduced the skipper, the millionaire and his wife, and the movie star, and then brushed off the professor and Mary Ann as the rest. It was like being invited to a party and getting introduced as some random people they just found in the parking lot.
The movie star and the rest.
While the theme song was catchy enough to stay in our heads for decades, it caused real anger among the cast because being treated like background noise is not great for morale. Who knew? Bob Denver was not okay with it. He pushed CBS to add his castmates to the credits and the theme song. When the network first pushed back because of money, Denver offered to move his own name to the last spot in the credits to stand with the professor and Mary Ann. The network, wanting to keep their star listed first, decided it was easier to rewrite the whole song. By Season 2, the theme was recorded again as a lively sea shanty by the Eligibles and finally included the professor and Mary Ann.
The movie star, the professor and Mary Ann.
Number 4. Happy Wife, Canceled Castaways. Gilligan's Island didn't end because viewers stopped watching. It was sacrificed for an older show, like TV's version of throwing the younger guy overboard to save the ship. In 1967, after 3 seasons, Gilligan's Island was canceled so CBS could move Gunsmoke into its time slot. The reason was that network president William Paley's wife loved Gunsmoke and asked her husband to save it from being canceled. Even in the 1960s, Happy Wife, Happy Life could decide primetime schedules. At that time, Gilligan's Island had dropped to number 44 in the ratings out of 101 shows.
And this dunch is almost all pun. I mean, this punch is almost all done. It's perfect. It's all gone, but believe me, it was perfect.
Good work, Gilligan. You're punch drunk.
Not exactly must-see TV, but still strong enough to survive under normal conditions. The cast and crew were caught off guard. Many had bought homes in Los Angeles or made long-term plans thinking another season was certain, because back then, 3 seasons actually meant something, unlike today when shows get canceled faster than Gilligan could mess up a rescue plan.
But the choice wasn't only about Babe Paley's request. CBS executives also had to think about bringing back Gunsmoke's cast after they had already been told the show was canceled, which meant higher costs. At the same time, some network executives were never fans of Gilligan's simple comedy, which made it an easy target when they needed to clear a time slot. So when it came down to it, the serious Western beat out the silly sitcom.
You don't need a mirror. You're still beautiful.
Oh, I know, but I'd like to get another opinion.
Ironically, Gilligan's Island ended up lasting longer in pop culture than Gunsmoke, thanks to decades of reruns that made it more popular after it was canceled than it ever was during its original run. The choice showed how much executive opinions could control TV schedules long before focus groups and streaming data turned television into a science experiment. So the reason Gilligan was never rescued wasn't because viewers stopped caring. It was because CBS decided a cowboy needed saving more than 7 stranded castaways, with a little help from the boss's wife.
Number 5. Raquel Welch almost played Mary Ann, and Jerry Van Dyke almost played Gilligan. Casting choices can change TV history faster than Gilligan can ruin a perfectly good rescue plan. Gilligan's Island came very close to looking completely different. Raquel Welch tried out for the role of Mary Ann, but didn't get it because producers thought she was too glamorous to play a farm girl from Kansas, which is like saying the sun is too bright for a flashlight ad. Creator Sherwood Schwartz wanted someone with a real girl-next-door feel, and Dawn Wells delivered it perfectly, with the kind of wholesome charm that made millions of viewers choose Team Mary Ann over Team Ginger.
Gee, that would make me happy. Being rescued. Imagine everybody being rescued. Oh, except for Gilligan.
But the strangest casting what-if involved Gilligan himself. The main role was first offered to Jerry Van Dyke, Dick's younger brother and a solid comedy actor, who read the script and said it was the worst thing he had ever read, which, considering the sitcom scripts floating around in the 1960s, was really saying something. He turned it down to star in My Mother the Car, a sitcom about a man whose dead mother is brought back to life as a talking car.
Hello, Davy.
Oh, Mother.
Because apparently, Jerry's script-reading judgment needed some work. Spoiler alert, My Mother the Car flopped even worse than one of Gilligan's rescue attempts, while Bob Denver put on the red shirt and made TV history. The irony here is bigger than the skipper's waistline. Van Dyke later found long-term success on Coach, but he missed the chance to be the bumbling, lovable face of one of TV's most famous comedies. Sometimes the worst scripts make the best shows, and sometimes talking cars just aren't what America needs. Number 6. Tina Louise hated playing Ginger, or did she? On screen, Ginger Grant was glamorous, confident, and the very image of Hollywood stardom, stuck on a deserted island.
We had a hat with a veil.
I'm sure she's considered quite attractive in her own little group.
What's the trouble? She is her own little group.
Off-screen, Tina Louise's relationship with the role was complicated. She originally thought the show was created just for her, with Ginger as the main character and everyone else as supporting players, which, let's be honest, would have been the worst creative choice ever. Instead, she ended up in an ensemble cast and worried about being typecast as the dumb movie star, even though she was actually a classically trained actress who had done serious theater. The early scripts had Ginger doing lots of breathy Marilyn Monroe impressions, which made Louise feel like she was trapped in a sparkly prison made of palm fronds and fake eyelashes.
Let me see. There must be something I could do.
About the well.
The frustration ran so deep that Louise refused to take part in any of the later reunion movies, forcing producers to awkwardly recast Ginger, first with Judith Baldwin, then Constance Forsland. And like the rest of the cast, she made about $1,500 per episode, with no residuals, even as decades of reruns turned the show into a syndication goldmine, which probably didn't help her feelings about the experience. But here's where it gets more interesting. Louise later explained that much of the story about her hating her most famous role wasn't completely true. In recent interviews, especially after Dawn Wells' death in 2020, she admitted she actually enjoyed playing Ginger once the writers gave the character more depth and fewer dumb blonde moments.
She said the rumors of her total resentment were never real, though her long absence from reunions helped make people think that way. After the series ended, Louise successfully reinvented herself, starring in films like The Stepford Wives, writing children's books, and focusing on literacy and charitable work in New York City. Now in her 90s and the last surviving member of the original cast, she's had decades to make peace with her most famous role. Her story is a perfect reminder that sometimes the stories we tell about celebrities are more dramatic than reality, and that even being remembered as a glamorous castaway comes with its own complicated baggage.
Number 7. The millionaire who always forgot his wallet. Thurston Howell III was the kind of man who would rather die on a deserted island than be without a clean martini and his cashmere smoking jacket. He symbolized old money luxury, a man who thought having an unlimited expense account was his right. But the actor who played him, Jim Backus, had a very different attitude toward money. He turned being cheap into a running joke for the whole cast. Backus was already a veteran actor, well known for voicing Mr. Magoo.
Oh, excuse me, young man. Could you direct me to seat 33, section 13? Oh, everyone has his hand out for a tip these days.
He would often invite his co-stars out for lunch. He was charming, funny, and every bit the gentleman you'd expect from Thurston Howell, telling Dawn Wells and Natalie Schafer stories and keeping everyone entertained. But when the check came, oops, he'd forgotten his wallet again. This wasn't a one-time thing. It happened over and over during the entire first season, leaving his co-stars to pay, while Backus somehow always looked genuinely surprised by his forgetfulness. The joke went on until the cast party, when Natalie Schafer had had enough. With her own flair for drama, she gave Backus an itemized bill for all the lunches he hadn't paid for. The total was a huge $300, which was a lot of money in the 1960s, probably worth a few $1,000s today. Backus reportedly laughed out loud when he saw the bill, and the whole thing became a cast legend. Whether it was real cheapness or just a practical joke that went too far.
Your own plantation.
Oh, cotton or sugar, Mr. Howell?
Both. Better throw in a fleet of cars. It's a long ride between crops.
Oh, Mr. Howell, you're wonderful. You're so generous and sweet.
Nobody really knew, but it perfectly showed the irony of the man playing the show's millionaire being the one who never had cash. So the next time you see Mr. Howell asking Gilligan for a 5-star meal on the island, remember that the actor who played him wasn't above getting a free lunch or two from his friends. Even Hollywood millionaires sometimes have their co-stars pay the bill.
Number 8. How the skipper became a real-life tough guy. On screen, the skipper was the steady, bumbling, but kind-hearted captain of the SS Minnow. Off-screen, the man who played him, Alan Hale Jr., was so committed to the role that he actually hid a broken arm so production wouldn't stop. Because apparently, the show must go on wasn't just a saying, it was a way of life.
That's all right, little buddy.
What are we gonna do?
The first thing we must do is remain calm and cool. You won't get hysterical, will you?
Right.
And you won't panic.
The incident happened during the first season, when Hale was doing a stunt that involved falling from a palm tree. He missed his landing spot and broke his wrist. But being an old-school professional from the time when actors did their own stunts without a team of lawyers, he decided not to tell anyone for weeks. Imagine this. For weeks, Hale kept doing all his skipper duties, wrestling with Gilligan, carrying heavy props on set, and doing physical comedy like nothing was wrong. He never complained, never missed a day of work, and somehow made it look easy while nursing a broken bone.
Well, how do I look, Gilligan?
You look like a bowl of soggy shredded wheat.
Thank you for the compliment.
The truth only came out at the season wrap party when show creator Sherwood Schwartz noticed Hale's wrist was very swollen and asked what happened. Hale casually said he had broken it weeks ago, like he was just talking about the weather. When Schwartz asked how he managed to do all that physical comedy with a broken arm, Hale just said it wasn't easy. Only then did they finally put a cast on his arm from wrist to elbow. And this wasn't even Hale's only on-set accident. In another episode, while doing a pratfall with a bamboo ladder, a sharp splinter cut his ear and he needed a bandage. The guy was basically a walking workplace safety hazard, but he never let it stop him. This story shows Hale's old-school professionalism and real show-must-go-on attitude. He was a real-life captain, not slowed by injury, and fiercely dedicated to his little buddy and the other castaways. Turns out the skipper really was as tough as he looked, maybe even tougher. Now, since you're still here, be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more retro TV deep dives just like this. Now, let's continue the countdown with number 9, Behind the Lagoon. Cold, gross, and totally fake.
Skipper, I got a bite. Must be a real big one, Skipper.
So do I. Mine must weigh 50 pounds. Watch it, little buddy. You're fouling my line.
Sorry to ruin your vacation plans, but that lush tropical lagoon was pure Hollywood fake, like most things on TV that look too good to be true. CBS spent a lot of money building their version of paradise on the Studio City lot, with imported palm trees and a man-made lagoon that was about as real as a $3 bill. In reality, the water was only about 4 feet deep, more like a giant kiddie pool than a South Pacific getaway, which is why nobody ever seemed to drown despite Gilligan's best efforts, and the island was far from warm.
Well, I'm sorry, but this is a deserted island. There's only 7 castaways out here, and I'm the skipper.
And I'm Gilligan.
What are you, some kind of Peace Corps dropouts? Come on, boys, move it, move it!
Most filming happened in the fall and winter. The unheated lagoon water often dropped into the 40s and 50s, making it about as tropical as a Minnesota ice rink. Bob Denver reportedly wore a wetsuit under Gilligan's red shirt just to avoid hypothermia. Not exactly what you picture when you think of a tropical paradise. On top of that, the lagoon was always full of algae and needed cleaning every day so it wouldn't look like a swamp on camera. The water got so gross during breaks that Bob Denver and Alan Hale Jr. once dropped a fish in to show how unhealthy it was, and the fish died. Even though it was a Hollywood backlot, freeway noise still messed up filming, and takes were often ruined by the sounds of LA traffic rushing past paradise. Eventually, some interior scenes were moved to a soundstage to escape the weather and noise, but the tricky lagoon was still used for outdoor shots through the whole series. The set stayed around long after the show ended, remaining intact until 1995. Then, Paradise was demolished and turned into a parking lot. What fans saw as a sunny, tropical lagoon was really cold, shallow, dirty, and very much in the San Fernando Valley.
Number 10. Where the heck was Gilligan's Island? For 3 years, the island's location was about as reliable as Gilligan's rescue plans. That is, completely inconsistent and a little worrying. In some episodes, the coordinates put them near Hawaii. Other times, they were closer to Mexico. Sometimes the numbers didn't match anything in the real Pacific Ocean, leaving fans trying to map it out with a big question mark and the growing thought that geography wasn't the writer's strong suit. Creator Sherwood Schwartz later admitted honestly, "We never worried about maps," which is TV code for "we made it up as we went along and hoped nobody would notice." In other words, continuity wasn't exactly the priority when coconuts were your main props and your biggest special effect was a wind machine blowing on some palm trees.
The ship's aground on the shore of this. The ship's aground on the shore of this uncharted desert.
The confusion only grew because the opening credits kept showing different locations too. It was like the island was on a magical mystery tour. Early shots used Sandy Key in the Caribbean for that famous tiny ship footage, later replaced by Coconut Island near Oahu, plus lots of lagoon scenes filmed at CBS Studio Center in California. Even the weather and tides seemed to change wildly from episode to episode, like the island was teleporting around the Pacific depending on the story. In reality, it was simpler and cheaper. The island was a mix of locations, backlot tricks, and whatever stock footage the production could afford that week. But for viewers trying to make sense of it, Gilligan's biggest mystery wasn't how to get rescued. It was figuring out where the heck they actually were.
Number 11. When Gilligan went animated and blonde. Remember when Saturday morning cartoons were the ultimate kids' TV? Well, in 1974, the Castaways got the Filmation treatment because apparently being stuck on a tropical island wasn't strange enough. They now had to be poorly animated too. The New Adventures of Gilligan brought back most of the original cast to voice their cartoon versions, complete with Filmation's famous limited animation style.
I don't know about your career, but we have an excellent opportunity here to make a documentary about this unknown...
You know, where the characters moved like they were controlled by invisible strings, and the same walking animation was used over and over, like a college textbook getting recycled. Creator Sherwood Schwartz was very involved, probably thinking that if you're going to reuse your own material, you might as well do it with actual recycled animation loops. But here's where it gets interesting. Louise didn't want anything to do with playing Ginger again, wanting to stay away from the role that made her famous. And things worked out exactly as you'd expect.
To avoid legal issues over using her likeness, the animated Ginger became blonde, because nothing says we're totally not copying Tina Louise like changing her hair color. Meanwhile, Dawn Wells was busy doing theater and couldn't voice Mary Ann, so the producers hired Jane Webb to voice both female characters, keeping the illusion that there were two different actresses. Webb was credited under her real name for Ginger and her married name Jane Edwards for Mary Ann, creating fake credits to hide that one woman was basically talking to herself. The show also added Snubby, a monkey sidekick for Gilligan, because Saturday morning cartoons apparently always needed a cute animal. In true Filmation style, Snubby would deliver moral lessons at the end of episodes, because nothing says educational content like a cartoon monkey teaching kids about sharing.
Snubby, stop! Cut out the monkey business!
And to save money on royalties, they dropped the famous sea shanty theme and used a spoken word poem read by the cast over plain background music instead.
There once was a ship that put to sea. The name of the ship.
Well, everyone except Bob Denver, because even cartoon Gilligan had his limits when it came to cheap budget compromises. Despite being a low-budget Saturday morning filler, it was popular enough to lead to Gilligan's Planet in 1982, where the Castaways finally left the island only to get stranded on an alien planet, swapping headhunters and visiting millionaires for real aliens and space creatures. Because when you've used up all the ways to ruin rescues on Earth, there's always the whole galaxy. Number 12. The secrets Mrs. Howell kept from everyone. On screen, Mrs. Howell was the picture of pampered luxury, the kind of rich socialite who probably had her shoes tied by servants. Off-screen, Natalie Schafer was just as smart at managing her image, but her secrets weren't hidden in designer handbags. They were tucked away in bank accounts and birth certificates.
The first thing you use, my dear, is your driver.
My driver? Don't be silly, darling. You know perfectly well my chauffeur's back home.
Schafer was actually 13 years older than Jim Backus, who played her TV husband, making their marriage about as realistic as most Hollywood age gaps, but with even better comedic timing.
I am Thurston Howell III, and this, of course, is my wife, Mrs. Thurston Howell III.
She kept her real age a secret from everyone, according to Hollywood stories, even from her own husband, and reportedly added contract rules to avoid close-ups or physical comedy that might give away her carefully guarded age. In a time when actresses were considered over the hill at 30, Schafer played the game like a master chess player. But the bigger surprise was that she was already a Beverly Hills millionaire thanks to smart real estate deals that would make today's house flippers jealous. She admitted she only agreed to do the Gilligan's Island pilot because it meant a free trip to Hawaii, basically treating the whole thing like a working vacation with a laugh track.
Actually, I was showing some visiting royalty, a poverty pocket.
Mrs. Howell, sugar beets have to come out of the ground before you can put them in cans.
Ooh, what a perfectly ghastly idea.
She had no idea it would define her career and make her a pop culture icon. While she later complained about being typecast, because apparently being remembered forever isn't always a blessing, Schafer quietly became a major philanthropist. When she died in 1991, she left millions to charities, including $2 million to the Motion Picture and Television Fund and a large gift to the Actors Home that now bears her name. Mrs. Howell may have been a pampered fictional character, but Natalie Schafer was smart, private, and quietly generous, and she knew how to play the long game, both on screen and off.
Number 13. The SS Minnow was a middle finger to the FCC. That little ship wasn't just bad luck, it was satire with life preservers. The SS Minnow was named after Newton Minnow, the FCC chairman, who in 1961 famously called TV a vast wasteland in a speech to the National Association of Broadcasters.
It's a vast wasteland.
Minnow basically told the whole TV industry that their shows were intellectual garbage, which went over about as well as you'd expect in a room full of network executives. Creator Sherwood Schwartz never forgot the insult, because creative people are known for holding grudges, and this was a very public one. In an interview with the Television Academy Foundation, Schwartz said naming the boat after Minnow was his quiet act of revenge, making the Minnow small, unimportant, and doomed to sink every week in the opening credits. And here's where TV legend gets a little unclear. There's a rumor that SS didn't stand for steamship, but were actually Schwartz's own initials. It sounds believable for a guy who already named his doomed boat after a government critic, but Schwartz never confirmed it. Sometimes the best TV trivia is the stuff that should be true, even if we can't prove it. What we do know is that Newton Minnow himself found it all pretty funny and reportedly had a good relationship with Schwartz afterward, showing that sometimes the best revenge is just getting the last laugh. Number 14. Fan Theory: The 7 Deadly Sins. Leave it to fans to turn a coconut comedy into a theology lesson. Gilligan's Island became famous for one of the most well-known TV theories ever, that each castaway represented one of the 7 deadly sins. According to this idea, Ginger was lust, obviously. Mr. Howell was greed, also obvious. Gilligan was sloth, which is debatable since he was always moving. The skipper was wrath because those temper tantrums were legendary. The professor was pride, showing off all his coconut inventions. Mary Ann was envy, supposedly jealous of Ginger's glamour. And Mrs. Howell was gluttony, which seems unfair, but okay. It sounds convincing enough to write a college thesis about, right?
One of those cramped quarters, you know, like a little ham radio shack.
Hello, I'm an actress. Can you tell me what's happening in Hollywood? I mean, any guy...
Creator Sherwood Schwartz at first laughed at the whole idea, calling it silly, which is funny coming from the guy who invented coconut radios. But he did admit that each character was built around one big, exaggerated trait, which gave the theory just enough fuel to keep going, like the SS Minnow before that big storm. Here's where it gets interesting. Later in life, Schwartz seemed to change his mind. By 2008, he reportedly said that each character really did have a flaw inspired by the 7 deadly sins. Either he had a change of heart, or decades of fan theories had worn him down. Academics, because of course academics got involved, made their own interpretations. Paul Cantor saw the Castaways as a parody of American democracy, forced to work together even though they represented very different social types, which actually makes more sense than the sin theory. Others linked them to commedia dell'arte stock characters, suggesting the show had deeper theatrical roots than anyone realized. Apparently, every sitcom needs a connection to Italian Renaissance theater.
Number 15. The Gilligan's Island twist that nobody saw coming. For 15 years, audiences asked the same question. Would the castaways ever get rescued, or were they stuck forever building coconut machines that never worked? In 1978, they finally got their answer with the TV movie Rescue from Gilligan's Island, featuring most of the original cast. Tina Louise was replaced by Judith Baldwin in one of the most awkward recastings in TV movie history. But the rescue story didn't stop there. Apparently, leaving the island was only the start of their problems.
However, that wave will be so strong that it could force a boat into the shipping lane so we can finally be rescued.
That's good?
Only we don't have a boat.
That's bad.
In the 1979 sequel, The Castaways on Gilligan's Island, the Howells decided to turn their old prison into a tropical resort because nothing says a great business plan like making money from your trauma. Naturally, they got tricked by a scheme involving a valuable mineral discovery, leaving everyone stranded again faster than you could say 3-hour tour. Then came the sequel that really went over the top, The Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island in 1981. Yes, you heard that right. The legendary basketball team showed up on the island to face evil robots in what can only be described as the fever dream of a network executive who had too much coffee and not enough sleep. This time, both Tina Louise and Dawn Wells were replaced. Constance Forsland played Mary Ann because of a pay dispute. Jim Backus, who played Mr. Howell, appeared in several scenes even though he was visibly struggling with Parkinson's disease, giving fans a bittersweet goodbye to one of the show's most loved characters before he passed in 1989. The absurd crossover was peak 1980s television, part nostalgic fun, part commercial calculation, and completely surreal in a way that somehow worked, even though it made no logical sense. For fans, it was both funny and confusing, like watching childhood memories get mixed up in a blender with basketball tricks and robot villains. The Castaways may never have escaped network meddling in reunion specials, but they proved one important thing. If Gilligan can meet the Harlem Globetrotters and help them beat robot basketball players, then anything is possible on TV. Sometimes the silliest ideas make the most memorable shows. And there you have it, 15 weird facts about Gilligan's Island. What's your favorite Gilligan memory?
Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and tell us which TV deep dives you want to see next, because if Gilligan can get a spin-off with the Harlem Globetrotters, then any classic show deserves a second look.